So if somebody, for example, wanted to say they're, listening to watching you and say, hey, I would love to go and intern, what would they have to do?
Yeah, so we have like an online application on our website that is open at all times. So we kind of have a rolling application process, and they just fill out the questions. And a lot of that is, a little bit about your previous experience with animals or not, but most of it is how do you think you would survive living out in the middle of nowhere in sort of a communal setting?
Right.
Because again, it's not going to make or break anybody to have or not have animal care experience. That's what we're trying to offer here. So it's less about that and more about, is this the right fit for you specifically? But yeah,
Right.
so you go out, you fill out the application. We would then do sort of a Zoom or a phone interview and just further assess the situation, talk more in detail about what our program has to offer. And from there, you're offered an opportunity depending on your qualifications, are available housing, your timeline, things like that. And then we start people off with a 3-month internship, 40 hours a week, with housing offered, a small stipend, utilities, Wi-Fi, all that stuff covered. And then if people are interested in a longer stay, we have an invitational basis where we can extend an increased timeline for people as well. And yeah, that's kind of what it looks like.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, good to know. Now, what does a day look like for an intern, or for Brittany for that matter? I'm sure you're really super busy as well too, but I'm sure you have different tasks as well. But give me a kind of a mixture of what would go on at a sanctuary at a day to day. I know that people can watch the film, but just so the people that are listening now that can kind of get an idea of the hard work that you guys do every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a common phrase you'll hear in any animal care field is that there's no such thing as a standard day because there's always, obstacles and changes and things like that. But for the most part, we arrive at work at 7:30 in the morning. We have one person that is scheduled to go administer med balls to all of the animals that need them and perform what we call rounds. So you
Rounds.
basically go around the entire compound, and as you're giving out med balls, you're making sure that you can see all the animals, they're all alive and well and in their enclosures. You're checking locks to make sure that everything is secure, making sure they have water, just looking for any unusual observations. So, oh, so and so has a limp this morning, or hey, a tree branch fell down on this fence line. So you're just making sure that the entire facility is secure and that all of your animals look good and healthy like they're supposed to. Once that's done, we go out
Mm-hmm.
and we do a feeding for all of our animals, split between our little kids, which are like our singers, coyotes, foxes, and then our big kids, which are the wolves and wolf dogs. And once that's finished, we separate into
Okay.
like our little clusters of primary enclosures. So, for example, at any given time, you might have as many as
Right.
6 enclosures that you're responsible for. So, that could be up to 12 animals. And you'll go clean their enclosures, change their waters, fill their splash tubs, do any enclosure maintenance that may be needed for USDA compliance. You're socializing the animals that want to socialize, or potentially working on relationship building or trust building with those that
Okay.
maybe aren't ready to socialize with people. Once the animal care routine is done, we some days have what is called wolf kitchen. So it's a lot of like meat separation and food processing, which of course is everyone's favorite thing to do, is play with raw meat.
I'm
And I
very
say
sure.
that
So
so
you can be
sarcastically.
queasy.
Yeah, yeah. And even during the hunting season, we're so fortunate we get a lot of our
Okay.
meat donated from local butcher shops. So it's not like the nice store-bought
Right.
packaged food, though we do get that as well, but it's like grizzly whole
Sure.
prey items. There's fur attached, there's organs. So we'll go sort through our meat and we'll prep everything to basically provide us for a week at a time, or prep extra if we can. And that does take hours and hours out of every week to
I can
do
imagine.
when you have 60 plus animals. We go through almost
Wow.
800 pounds of meat every week, so it's pretty crazy. Once we're done doing like our wolf kitchen and stuff, we sort of separate depending on the day into either doing like facility projects, educational projects, or intern projects. We have twice weekly intern labs. So, in order to offer them a full, well rounded
Sure.
experience, it's not just, picking up poop and doing meat processing. It's learning unique skills that will give them an edge in the animal care field. So, for example, last week we did a blood draw lab. So they actually
Wow.
got to practice blood draws on live animals for rechecking thyroid levels and just making sure they're all healthy. They will get to learn about like quality of life assessments. So, for example, we have most of our animals here in our senior population, and the unfortunate part of
Yeah.
working with animals is that they will pass away, but we teach them how we kind of assess our seniors to make sure we're making the
Sure.
calls for end of life appropriately. So that's something we did last week as well. They will learn how to drive machinery, use big tools. We're expanding some of our enclosures now, so they're learning enclosure design and USDA compliance requirements. So those are just a few examples, but we do those twice a week. We then also have enrichment and operant conditioning that we do with the animals. So they'll spend a lot of time, or we as keepers in general spend a lot of time prepping enrichment, distributing it, cleaning it up after they have fun with it, working on training different voluntary behaviors for the animals to give them a more, well-rounded mental stimulus,
Right.
but also least stressful means of working with them as possible. So yeah, that's kind of a general day in the life. And then on top of that, we've got meetings, and that's all with us not being open to the public. When we're open, it's a totally
Sure.
different ballgame because you've got tours and educational presentations offsite. So that'll switch up a little bit once we're back to being reopened.